Welcome in, Jordan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Just trying to get done with this work day.
I feel you.
But
So
you're making it very entertaining.
I appreciate that. Jordan, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
I'm 18 and I am a believer.
Cool. And what God do you believe in?
Uh, the Christian God, Jesus.
Cool. What'd be the best argument or evidence for the Christian God being real?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for proof, you're not going to get it. But I was wanting to know if I could just ask you some questions. I'm trying to get to know your stance a little bit more. Like, what's your argument against creation, as in like design?
We have no
Like, if
evidence
somebody
of
came up
it.
here and said, the fact that everything that that reality and everything looks like it's beautifully designed and it has to be a designer in order for something to be existence.
It falls about pretty
You
quick.
think
Why would God design human beings so that children are born with bone cancer?
I mean, you studied, isn't the Christian answer for that is the sin? Like,
I
we're living a fallen world not created
Yeah,
for
I
us.
know the answer to it, but the answer is going to cook you worse than the first argument. So that if you think that
Look, I'm just,
did God have to create babies with bone cancer?
God have to create babies with bone cancer.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think I stand on where,
You don't
kind of like
know?
in the book of Job. I mean, yeah, that is my stance. I stand on the book of Job where God says, "You have no idea what I deal with and how I've created and how I'm in the universe together."
Do all knowing
So, I
beings
mean,
have to do anything?
in my like human finite brain, that's like I get mad at God, going, "Why does this person die of cancer? Why does a child die of cancer? Why do people get raped? Why do people have car accidents and pass away because somebody was drinking and driving?" Like, I don't have the answers for those. I mean, I've shaken my fist to God about it many, many times, but just because I don't understand him doesn't mean I can disprove him.
Fair enough. So you don't understand. There's a logical issue in your worldview that you don't have an answer for. So you don't know why God would create babies with bone cancer, but you do believe that it's a bad thing.
I don't think God create. When you say God created babies with bone cancer, it seems like you come off saying like God put that cancer in them.
I
And I
didn't say
think what
that.
you're really trying to say, that's what I know.
God created
That's kind of way that
humans
question.
in a way in which they would get bone cancer.
Yeah, yeah.
And God knew that was going to happen, right?
I think through the fall of Earth,
No, no,
yes. I
God
think
knew it
God
was going to
knew.
happen, right?
Yes, I believe God knew that
That's not my
it was
question.
going to
All
be a
I'm
thing.
asking you, there we go. All I need to know is if he knew it. Okay. Now, could he have
Yes.
created humans and biology and the rest of the world? Could he have done it in a way in which babies aren't born with bone cancer?
Didn't he do that in the Garden of Eden?
I'm asking you, could he?
I'm saying he did in the Garden of Eden.
This would go way easier if you just say yes or no. Could he do it?
I mean, I don't know.
The answer is yes. Yes, he could, or else he's not omnipotent. So God could create a world without babies being born with bone cancer, correct?
I mean, yeah, you can also say that God could create a world without
God could create
storms.
a world without babies and bone cancer, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, which means he chose the world with baby bone cancer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, did he need to choose the world with baby bone cancer?
God, I'm not going to answer that.
Well, it's either yes or no.
No, because you're asking me to put myself in God's shoes and
Nope.
make a God decision.
Nope.
Essentially, you're asking me if I can
Nope.
build a better world than God did.
The answer is quite
Is that
easy.
not what you're asking?
No, that's not even close to what I'm asking. According to God's
It- it-
properties, because you believe in a God that's omnipotent, if your God's omnipotent, then he didn't need to design the world this way. He chose to design the world this way. That's what it means to be omnipotent. You don't have to do anything. Like Jordan, if you have all the power in the world, there's nothing you can't do. You could fly. You can shoot lasers with your eyes. There's nothing you cannot do, right? You can literally change the earth and make it flat, right? If you have all of those powers, can I force you to do something?
Could you force me to do something?
Right.
If I submit to you,
That's not my question. I said, can I force you to do something?
yes,
How?
you force me to submit to you.
Wrong. I can't force you to submit to me. That's a choice you would have to make.
But you don't think choices can be forcefully put on someone?
How? How would I force you to submit to me?
You threaten me with something,
But your
and
submission,
that I have to.
your submission is still your choice. You're all powerful, remember?
Yeah,
Okay, so you don't have to
but if
submit. You chose to submit.
okay, so but I can. You can still force me to choose to submit.
I can't force you to make that decision. Only you can make that decision.
So is your argument of this that only like all decisions made are through consciousness and nothing can be forcefully submitted?
Not even close. My argument is easy.
Sorry, I'm trying to track where you're going. Sorry.
All powerful beings don't have to do anything. They choose to do what they want because they're all powerful. They
Correct.
can do anything.
Okay.
There's
Tracking.
nothing they can't do, which means if they do something, definitionally speaking, it was a decision.
Correct. Okay, I'm tracking now.
Okay. So God, if he's all powerful, that means creating the world with baby bone cancer wasn't something he had to do. It was something he chose to do.
He chose it as a punishment
I
in a sin in our sinful world.
I agree. In your worldview, God chose the world with baby bone cancer as a punishment for what Adam and Eve did. And this is why your God is
Correct.
illogical, because your God can't cause unnecessary suffering.
Well, who says
And
it's unnecessary?
what's it necessary for?
I mean, it could be necessary for a lot of things. It
Like
could
what?
be necessary for the growth of strength of parents, for the belief of people,
Oh,
for
I'm sorry.
the understand. I mean,
Do you think you need bone cancer for your parents to be good parents?
I didn't say that.
Well,
I
it's,
said for
well,
the
it's not
growth and
necessary
strength.
then.
I mean, I look at it like
So,
this. So
so
you bring up this example of,
let's not
hang on,
get. Hold on, hold on,
hang on.
hold on.
I want to. I want to
Jordan,
say,
stop. You're gonna get lost in the weeds. You're gonna get lost in the weeds. Before we can go any further, you have to understand what the word necessary means. What does the word necessary mean?
yeah, it means it has to happen. Like no, there's
There
no
you
alternate
go.
route.
There's no other way it could be. Okay. So
Right. So
If
what I'm
God
trying
wants
to,
to strengthen your parents, you're saying the only way he can do it is through giving children bone cancer.
not maybe it's the only way it would actually like grab a person's heart. Like God knows everything about a person. Nothing else could convince them, but
Convince them of what?
would draw the person to needing strength,
Okay,
to need strength, and to rely on God for strength.
so if you're a parent and you have one child and that child dies of bone cancer, how does that make you a better parent?
It doesn't. I never said it makes you a better parent, but I did have a
But
child,
it
and my
does.
child did die.
I'm sorry to hear that. But if you only have one child and your
And when I,
child dies, how does that make you a better parent if you never have more kids?
it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm not saying it makes me a better parent. I'm saying it makes me a stronger individual. It allows me to rely on God more than myself and my own strength and my own understanding.
What are you relying on him for?
I'm relying on him for peace and strength.
You can't get that without God. I've got it. I don't have God.
I mean, you can get a
So
substitute of it. You can
so
get a make
God
believe of it, but not
God's
true
only
peace and
method
strength.
of teaching you how to rely on him is by executing innocent babies.
I didn't say it's his only method. I said that is a method that could be used.
Well, if it's not his only method, then it means it's not necessary, right? So if God has other means to do it that doesn't have the same amount of suffering, then that means he chose the amount that is barbaric, right? If God could do it by any other
No, no,
means,
no, 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 no.
then the baby bone cancer is not
I am
required.
saying what I'm saying is individually speaking, there could be no other way. But overall speaking, as humanity, God reveals himself and God also does things through different people, and people suffer differently because each person has an individual walk and relationship of trying to understand who God is. And if God uses something to get our attention, not saying that God is causing our children to die, because that's, I mean, that sucks, man. Losing a child is It's something I hope no one
No,
ever has to experience.
no, Jordan.
But for my personal,
No, Jordan. In your worldview, God is causing the specific child to get bone cancer because you said He's using it because the individual, like you're saying, it's not overall, it's for the individual. Like God knows that one particular individual wouldn't learn what they need to learn without it, which means God is specifically picking children. He's handpicking children to give bone cancer to.
I mean, again, I'm not saying not standing up here and claiming to say I know exactly why God does the things He does. I'm claiming up here and saying that certain suffering is necessary and that we live in a world of suffering, and suffering can
You,
cause us to grow, can cause us to be stronger, can cause us to gain wisdom, and can cause us to grow
Listen, you
closer
can
to
say it all you
Christ as
want. The
well.
more you repeat it, it doesn't fix the problem. The problem is it's not necessary unless it's the only possible method. And when you have an
And maybe it was the only
all
possible
powerful
method
when
for
you have an
me.
all powerful God who literally designed humans, it can't be the only possible method. God designed us.
It's what you're not hearing me say is it may have been the only possible way for a individual, but for humanity, like everybody doesn't experience the loss of a child. If God was this truly evil person that everyone wants to claim him to be, then yeah, he could just be killing off everybody.
Did
But
God knit you in
everybody
your
is
mother's womb,
specifically
Jordan?
different. I do believe that God knitted me in my
Okay,
mother's
so
womb.
did God design you? Did He give you the gifts that you would need in life?
I mean, he had to give me something because my sister died and I lived. So
Right. So God is determining human beings' characteristics, personality traits, and things like that, right, prior to their birth, just like He did
I mean,
with
I think
David.
I don't know if you would say personality traits. I think we kind of get those through, I think our essence of our soul, like God knits that.
So God is literally capable of designing us
A
so that
racist baby. Like that's something that happens. That's something we learn.
so God literally is designing us in a way in which we need baby bone cancer then, because if He has the ability to design human beings so we don't need baby bone cancer, then it's still not necessary.
I think again, we live in a fallen world. Like I was listening to you earlier talking about.
The fallen world
I was
doesn't
listening to you
fix it.
earlier talking about Earth.
The fallen world would never
But
fix
hang
it.
on, I was listening to you earlier about the guy who was talking about natural disasters and like God created this earth for us. And I actually had a question I wanted to ask you because you said you studied the Bible.
Yeah.
Um, do you believe that earth was made for humans?
Yeah.
Like is that kind of what is that the that's that when you were a Christian, you believe that earth was made for humans?
Yeah.
Where does that happen in the Bible? Because the earth, I never read anywhere where the earth was made for.
Because there's no other reason for Earth to exist.
I've read that God I read that God created the planets and God created, and then Satan betrays him and he is sent to earth. And then God created us in the garden and we were supposed to be with him, but we looked at God and basically gave him the middle finger. And God said, okay, you can go be on earth now. But I've never read anywhere that said God created humans for this earth. Like, this planet was designed. There's nowhere in the Bible that says earth was designed for us. It says God created it, but it doesn't say he made it for us.
Sure, then what's his other purpose for it?
Why it was designed, I mean, it was a planet. He was just creating. I'm not God. I can't answer for
So
him.
God
But
is God
your answer
arbitrarily
to the gentleman,
so God arbitrarily created the Earth.
I think it's needed for the universe to exist. I think the things that hold this universe together are finite.
This is a crazy
And
pivot.
things I think if things are off, I'm not trying to pivot. I was just asking, I wanted to bring that point up earlier because I was listening, I wanted to talk about it, and it was just kind of interesting because you were standing on the fact that God created this earth for mankind, because you were talking about natural disasters and baby cancer and all this other stuff. Like why? Like we weren't made
Did
for this planet.
no,
There's nowhere in the Bible that
if
says
you
we were
haven't
made
all
for this
just Jordan,
planet.
stop talking. If you have an all-knowing God and He knew humans would be on the planet, then He knew the planet was going to be for humans. Like none of this,
He had an understanding.
none of what you're saying matters unless you don't believe in an all-knowing God.
I think when we think of all knowing God, I don't think most people understand the depth of all knowing. They think that it flirts with the line of predestination. I think it more sits around the fact of probability because God lives outside of time. He is past, present, and
Yeah,
future.
that's crazy.
So he knows the future because he can be there, but he also
He created
understands that
it.
it's every single plausible chance that could ever be made. Like God, people's understanding of all knowing is lacking.
No, I disagree. All knowing means you know all things.
Okay.
That's all that means. You don't need
Does
another.
it okay?
You don't need a dictionary for that. You don't need a philosophical syllogism for it. Knowing all things just means you know all things. Basic words.
Yeah, but how do you know? How do you know
Doesn't matter.
things? Like
No one cares.
so you're so predestination.
No, I didn't say that. All I'm saying
All,
is that all knowing means you know all things. That's all that means.
but does all knowing dictate the future?
It can if you believe in a God that knew how everything would happen before he set all things in motion, right? So when God created,
So
before he spoke, he knew exactly what was going to happen the moment he spoke. He could have chosen one of a million trillion different recipes. He chose the recipe that would play out in this exact world. He knew that if he picked recipe A, it would result in Jordan getting on a live stream in 2025 talking to a guy named Justin. He knew that was the inevitable result of the thing he did. Since it's an inevitable result of a thing that he did, that means everything that happens is an inevitable consequence of what God did.
I have pause for me. I want to keep tracking with you. So we're going to back up just a little bit so you can explain it more in depth. You believe that God created the timeline that I'm in. He chose this timeline for me.
Yeah, so
Is that kind of what?
if God knows all things, God knows all possible timelines. He knows an infinity number of timelines, right? So
Yeah, I'm tracking.
before he created, he knew every possible timeline and he made a decision and said, this is the timeline. This is the thing that I'm going to do. And then he spoke and he did the thing, which means
That's where you lose me. That's where that right there. Let's break that down a little bit more because you said that he chose this timeline. How does he choose this timeline? By us having free will and us making
we didn't exist
alternate
yet.
decisions.
So
What do you mean we didn't exist yet?
before God spoke, right? Before he put anything into motion, he knew exactly what was going to happen. And he said, I could make parameter A slightly different. I could make parameter B slightly different. I could make parameter C slightly different, right? I could make David with slightly different characteristics. I could make Justin with slightly characteristics, but he didn't. He said, this is the timeline. This is the recipe. Go, which means everything that happens plays out exactly the way it was going to play out.
All right, so help me understand this because I mean that's the point of you doing TikTok lives and deconstructing and like helping people walk through this. So help me understand because I'm still not tracking because in my ideology and how I see things, you are basically saying things of that God existed in past, present, and future, and He designed and He chose this timeline,
Yeah.
which flirts with predestination. That no matter what, I was going to be on this live chat tonight with
Yep.
you. Like there was no other alternate fact, so you stand on predestination.
You can call it whatever you want. Everything that happens because God kicked it into motion on a timeline that he wanted to happen. He could have picked any
Now
timeline.
see,
He could have made the
so
timeline
this is
completely different. He didn't. He chose this timeline, which means we're doing the timeline that he chose.
this is where I think I stand different when I talk about all knowing. And then when I said that I think most people's ideology, or at least mankind's understanding of all knowing, is a little lacking, because in your idea of all knowing, it stands on this premise of a predestination that God
No.
chose this time.
Nope.
Hang on, let me
Wrong
finish,
again.
please.
Jordan, I'm not going to let you straw man my position.
I'm not trying to straw man.
Being all knowing doesn't mean predestination.
That's what you said that you stood
No,
on.
that's
So
no
I
bullshit. That's not my
apologize. Hang
position.
on.
Being
I
all
literally
knowing
said,
just means that you know all things. For example, I could be all knowing, right? God could give me the gift right now of being all knowing, and then I would know all things. That doesn't mean I predestined anything. Predestination is not an inevitable consequence of all knowingness. It's an inevitable
no,
consequence of all knowingness combined with being the guy who created the timeline. That's what gets you to predestinationism.
sir, I'm trying to ask a question. I'm trying to learn from you, and you're just kind of like yelling at me now. Like I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm trying to understand your point. And just because I ask questions doesn't mean I'm saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to understand where you stand on this matter. That's it. I apologize if it comes off that I'm fighting with you, but
Fair
I'm
enough.
really trying to understand your point.
Fair enough. I'll
So,
apologize
again,
myself.
when I asked a minute ago, when I said you're flirting with predestination because God chose this timeline, I thought you said yes, which would then make your premise that yes, this was kind of predestined.
Yes,
So I'm sorry if I
it
got
is
that wrong.
predestined.
So all knowing has a fact of a little bit of predestination. Is
No.
that a premise? Okay, okay. So help me
You
understand
can
this.
be all knowing and not predestined shit.
But do you think God predestined anything?
Yes.
You okay? Okay, so you think God that predestined this, and I think that's where I think because I'm trying to
No,
explain to
no.
you where
I know
I
he
sit.
did. It's definitionally true. God did
I know.
predestine it. Not only is it definitionally true, but he says in the Bible, he says it in the Bible, it's in there. He says he predestined people, right? He creates you with the gifts that you have. He makes you seeing or blind. He makes those decisions for you.
So I mean, he can predestine like the way we were created, but does that also mean he has to predestine our choices? Because it sounded
Yeah,
earlier that my choice to get on this live was inevitable. Like no matter what
it
I did, it was
was.
going to happen.
Everything you do right now is predetermined by your God.
Now, see, and can I explain kind of where I sit on this of what I think where all knowing sits? Because like I said, I've multiple times I have a different understanding or a different belief in all knowing, and you can tell me where I falter in it.
Go ahead.
So for me, all knowing is much more than just this idea of predestination or set in motion or this idea that God said, all right, timeline A, that's the one that I'm picking. But all knowing is actually so much more than that in the fact of because God lives outside of time, I contemplated whether I was going to I contemplated whether I was going to send a request to come up here and join you. Now, I think that because God sees the future, God knows the future of what I am, if I am going to click to join this live or if I'm not going to click this join live. It is almost like the ultimate math equation that you could ever fathom, where God knows every single possible outcome to our free will choices. So it's not that it's predestined, but because he lives outside of future, because he truly is all knowing, that God knows no matter what, all everybody's existence, every human, every choice you're going to make, whether you wake up and roll on the left side of your bed or the right side of your bed, whether you have eggs and bacon or eggs and steak for breakfast, no matter what it is, no matter the free will choice you make, God knows the future of it, of every single plausible outcome there could ever be. Now, how does that break down for you?
You're missing the component where God decided the timeline where that would happen, right? Before
So
God,
help me
hold on,
understand that.
Jordan, before God created anything, right? He could have created a timeline in which you, Jordan, never become a Christian. Like he could have said, listen, if I just tweak one thing, right? If I just make it so that gravity is 1 millionth of a % different, and that's going to affect a billion other things, right? And it might affect the fact that Jordan never becomes a Christian. That's something that could happen, right? God knew every parameter of everything he was going to make before he made it. And then he made it anyways, which means everything that happened the way God was okay with it happening. He knew you would do this. He could have created a timeline where I'm a Christian and you're an atheist. That was a timeline he could have made. He didn't make that timeline.
right, again, I apologize. You called me ignorant, but help me understand more of this. Where do you find the fact that God created this timeline? Like I see your facts in that God created us
Did,
and
did
he
not
created our
did God
nature.
not create everything?
I believe God created everything, but how does he create the timeline in which we live in? He created the universe, but the timeline is what I'm lacking because my idea of
Okay,
time
well, so
is something that
we'll
we
try
measure.
we'll try this again. We'll try this again. Okay, if I have 5 slides and I have one ball, and I choose which slide I'm going to put my ball down. Now, listen, I don't know as a human. I don't know which bump on which slide it's going to hit, and know exactly where that ball is going to land when it reaches the bottom of the slide, right? I don't know that because I'm not all knowing. God does. So God knows if he chooses slide number 5, he knows exactly where that ball is going to end up. And he still chose slide number 5, which means God wanted the ball to end up where it is, or else he would have chose another slide.
All right, so that's helping me understand your argument a whole lot better. So you have 5 slides and you are taking a ball and you're dropping it down the fifth slide. Now, you said that you don't know how it ends up or all the bumps that it's going to take, but you know exactly where it's going to end.
No, I don't.
It's
God
gonna
does.
God, but if you were all knowing, sorry, if you were all knowing,
Right.
then you would know that where it ended.
Yeah.
And
And
so you chose to put it into effect.
mhm.
Now, in this analogy, do you think it supports the timeline creation that like I mean I imagine you do like is there I just feel like there might be some lacking points in it
the
of
slide
the
is
bumps that goes down.
the slides are possible worlds, right? So God doesn't have 5 slides. God has infinity slides. He's got infinity possible worlds he could have created. The world that we ended up with in your worldview is the one that he chose. And because God chose that worldview, that means he chose the world where Jordan would be here with me on a live stream.
Yeah, but is my argument of all knowing still not stand the fact of what you just said in your analogy of the fact that God knew, like, yes, God knows the end of it, but at the same time, he knows every plausible choices I will ever
I
make.
know, and he chose it.
He chose my
He
choice.
chose the world. He built the recipe that ended in you coming on this channel. That's the world he chose. He could have chose a different one.
So it had nothing to do with my free will.
You only have an illusion of free will, and the Bible tells you don't have free will.
Can you show me the scripture where it says? Because I know you study the Bible. Can you show me the
Ephesians
scripture where
chapter
it
1
says?
verse 4.
Can you? I don't have a Bible in front of me, sir. Can you read it for me, please,
I
if you don't
got you.
mind? If you,
Yeah, I got you.
thank you so much.
Ephesians 1. Let me zoom in a little bit, make the text bigger for everyone. There we go. Ephesians 1. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing in heavenly places, just as he chose us in Christ before the foundation of the world to be holy and blameless before him in love. He destined us for adoption as his children through Jesus Christ, according to the good pleasure of his will. What the so-called Christian is selected by God before the foundation of the world.
Is that not just a Bible verse about humanity? And like the fact that because before then it was all about Israelites, but now it's about everybody in the world. So isn't that Bible verse just pointing out to blessed be everybody?
No, it's Christians.
But it's not. It's Gentiles.
It's not Gentiles, it's Christians.
But they were Gentiles, were they not? Isn't this written to the Gentiles?
Some of them were Gentiles, some of them were Jewish. He's referring to Christians.
Yeah, that blessed that I've always read that as blessed as we as humans, in a sense. Like it's not
Does
just
not
the
say
specific
humans.
people who I know, but it doesn't say that it's just specific Christians, but it's blessed us as people who are now
It doesn't
Christians.
say people. Who are the people that are adopted to be children of God through Christ Jesus? Who are those people?
Everyone outside of the Israelites.
Nope. It's the Christians.
That's so when Jesus says, I came for everybody and not just the Israelites, and he talks about his parables of, I had a party and I invited, my friends and they said no, so now I'm inviting everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not everyone else? Not necessarily Christians, but it's the Gentiles, the Jews, the Romans. Like he's inviting everybody
Yeah.
into heaven. Is that not what that Bible verse is talking about? Is
And we
humans, like
call
blessed are
them
we?
Christians.
Oh, we call them Christians now, but back then they didn't call them Christians.
No, but they are
There's-
Christians. Like the people are still going to hell. There are
I mean,
people who
yeah,
who are not going to heaven. The people who are going to heaven in our worldview are the Christians. Those are the
that
people that God chose before the foundation of the world.
not the Israelites.
No,
So all the Old Testament about being God's chosen people and all that's just hogwash. And after that Bible verse, after
they
Ephesians.
are God's chosen people, and the Christians are God's chosen elect who have been grafted into Israel. They were chosen before the foundation of the world.
So we don't actually. So would you say your stance is? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Would you say your stance is that God has determined who and who doesn't gets to spend an eternity in His presence,
Yeah,
and you don't think there's no way to falter from that?
I don't even know what you mean by falter.
I guess you think there's no plausible outcome, no matter what. God infinitely made people to go to hell.
Yeah, he says so. Romans chapter 9, he tells you that. He predestined people to go to hell. They're called vessels of wrath.
Well, can you bring that up for me if you don't mind?
Yeah, we'll read that after we also read Revelation. In Revelation 13, 7 and 8, during the war, it says, it was allowed to wage war on the saints to conquer them. It was given authority, this is the beast, given authority over every tribe and people and language and nation. All the inhabitants of the earth will worship it. Everyone's whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life. So just like Ephesians, the people who are in the book of life, their names were written there before the foundation of the world.
For
And
the foundation of the sorry, I was reading that.
oh, sorry, I moved too fast. Yeah, it's
No,
Revelation 13, 7 and 8.
Revelation 13, 7 through 8. I'm gonna look that up later. Let me write that down real quick. If you don't mind.
That's fine.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you right now. I think you're having reception cut in and out. No, maybe. Jordan, I think we lost you, buddy.
For some reason, I just couldn't hear you, but
Oh,
it's connected to something else. I'm back now.
well, we're back now. All right, so Romans 9, let's end on Romans 9 because this reaffirms everything we're saying. Romans 9 start in like 10 or 11, right? Talks about Jacob and Esau. It says, even before they had been born or had done anything good or bad, so that God's purpose of election might continue, not by works, but by his call, she was told that the elder shall serve the younger. As it is written, I have loved Jacob, but Esau I have hated. What then are we to say? Is there injustice on God's part? By no means, for he says to Moses, I have mercy on whom I have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So it depends not on human will or exertion, but on God who shows mercy. So this idea of who's going where is God's decision. He chooses who he shows mercy on, which is why in verse 19 it says, you'll say to me then, why then does he still find fault? For who can resist his will? But who indeed are you, a human, to argue with God? Will what is molded say to the one who molds it, why have you made me like this? Has the potter no right over the clay to make out of the same lump one object for special use and another for ordinary use? What if God, desiring to show his wrath and to make known his power, has endured with much patience the objects of wrath that are made for destruction? Right?
And you believe the objects of wrath that are made for destruction are certain humans.
Yeah, the non-Christians, the evil ones, theoretically.
Ah, fair enough. I mean, if that's what you believe, I mean, I don't know if there's much like you've gone to Bible college. I don't know if there's much if convincing that you would want from me about who the objects of wrath are. I don't think I would see them as humans.
What are
I
they?
think the object. I think when I was. I don't. I'm not going to sit here and claim to know what they are. I just never viewed them as humans. I can further study and see what they are.
Well, the
I
whole
think
chapter
it's
is talking about
interesting though when
humans. The whole chapter is God picking and choosing humans. Why would I think that now suddenly he's talking about household pottery?
fair point. When it comes to is there any argument in the stance of there are certain people who have predestination, and because it says in that Romans that some people are built for special and some people aren't. Like when you think of the story of the Old Testament and you think of Noah, like no matter what, Noah was gonna go to Nineveh. Like that was kind of the whole plan.
Jonah.
Like Jonah's, sorry,
Hmm.
Jonah.
Hmm.
Yeah, you like the story behind it is no matter what, Jonah was going to go to Nineveh, and there's certain people in the Bible and certain people that have to do certain things so that the will of God would be laid out in order. So it would always be the directed path that yes, there are some people who are going to be predestined to do something, but can there not be in God's reality also people who aren't as special as Romans says that kind of have free will to make choices?
That's what I'm saying. The free will that you're referring to appears to be only an illusion. Like you're making that decision because God put you on the timeline where you would make that decision.
Because God put you on the timeline where you would make that decision.
Hmm.
So the idea of free will is completely gone. So you think that Adam and Eve didn't have free will, that Adam and Eve had to eat the fruit. There was no other path.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If God's slain Jesus, if God killed Jesus before the foundation of the world, then he knew that Adam and Eve were going to sin. He wasn't caught off guard.
I mean, in my view, he knew he knew the probability of most likely how it was going to play out, and through that he knew because he knows the end. But
So
I still don't know if
so
I subscribe to the predestined thing yet.
Jesus was killed for a probability?
Jesus was killed to forgive the sins.
No, was he killed for a probability or for what God knew?
I would sit here and say that God, or it's, I mean, you get into the semantics of like Satan. Did God know Satan was going to betray him?
He must.
Or
It,
did God know every single outcome of what Satan could and couldn't have done?
well, he's either all knowing or he's not. If he's not all knowing, then just admit that he's not all knowing, and then we can say 1 John chapter 3 is wrong.
Well, and I go back to the point of all knowing of where I still don't know if you've gotten me away from my understanding
No,
of it.
all knowing means you know all things. There's not a single thing that you don't know.
Yes, but he knows all probability of
No,
all
no,
things is
I
still
didn't
where I
say anything
stand
about
on it.
probabilities. I said he either knows everything or he doesn't.
Would you would it stand on the point that you believe he knows all things because he stands outside of time and he knows how this all ends?
It doesn't matter how he knows it. It only matters that he does. He either does or he doesn't know all things.
Gotcha.
If he doesn't know
And
all
because,
things, then that means there's a piece of scripture that's wrong.
I mean, I believe that God knows all things.
Okay. That means then he knew before Satan fell that Satan was going to fall. He knew before Adam and Eve ate the fruit that they would eat the fruit. That's why the Bible says that he had Jesus slain and the elect chosen before the foundation of the world. He wouldn't kill Jesus if he didn't know he needed to.
True. Well, Jesus as himself, like he had to sacrifice himself because of the fulfillment of the covenant, because the Israelites left him.
Well, he didn't have to. Again, that goes back to the omni paradox. If he's all powerful, he don't have to do anything. He only chooses to do things.
Well, if he chooses to create a universe where he has to kill himself, then he chose to live within those bounds of the universe that he created.
No, he doesn't have to
Is
do
that
it. He
not
chose to do
correct?
it.
But if he chooses to live in the bounds of the universe he created, then he still chose to do it. Is that not correct?
It's a choice, not a requirement.
But if he, that's what I'm saying. If he chooses to
Mhm.
live by a requirement, is
Mhm.
that still not a choice of all power?
It's a choice, but he could choose not to. That's what it means to be all powerful. God could
Okay,
choose not to do that.
that's fine. But I'm not. I don't want to argue semantics on what God chose and what He didn't choose. I am simply saying that if God chose to live in the universe of which the rules He set up,
Mhm.
how does that make Him less all powerful? He is choosing to live in that. How does that make Him less all powerful?
I never said that it did make him or less all powerful. I don't know where you're going with this.
So okay, so do you agree that God can choose to live in a
What I'm
realm
saying
of
is that
laws that He put
what I'm
into?
saying is that
Man, let me
God's
finish.
no, because you're
Let me
missing. I'm trying to address your point because you missed what I said. Okay, your original point was that God had to kill Jesus, right? And now you have accidentally come into agreement with me, and you don't know it yet, right? Because if God chose the timeline where He kills Jesus, then it's still a decision. He didn't have to do it.
But we talked earlier about specific people for specific persons that God could choose for those, but also for other people to be left alone, like in Romans, where it
But
states.
but
Do we
God
not?
didn't have to kill Jesus. He could have just forgave them.
I mean, yes, but he chose not to do that.
Right.
He chose to live by the rules of the universe and the system he put in place. And I
Yeah.
don't
That
understand how that
that
makes him
means
less powerful.
the slaughtering of Jesus was a choice, not a necessity.
So, but how does that make him less all powerful? Because he chose
I
to
didn't
live in
say
it.
that it did. I don't know why you're confusing this argument. God making choices has nothing to do with him not being all powerful. I'm saying if God is required to do something, right? If he does not have the choice, then he's not all powerful. You're agreeing with me that what God did was his decision, which means it's a decision. He's not required to do it.
Yes, I agree that God makes decisions, but
Okay.
I also sit on the stance that God also agrees to live by those decisions.
Listen. I never said he would go back on his decisions. No one's questioning that. All I'm saying is God chose to kill Jesus. That was his decision. He didn't have to do it. No one forced him to do it. He chose to do it.
So do you sit on the premise that God can redo things, that he, because you said that God set on this decision, can God redo decisions?
According to the Bible, God can't change his mind, and according to being omniscient, God can't change his mind either.
Don't we see God change his mind in the Old Testament per se?
I love it. You finally found an easy contradiction. Number 19, 23, 19, Numbers 23, 19, and 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 29 clearly states that God cannot tell a lie and God cannot change his mind. We see him doing exactly that in Genesis 6 and in Exodus 32. In Exodus 32, it literally says that God changed his mind about the disaster that he was going to bring upon the Israelites.
I mean, in the verse where it says that God cannot change his mind, where's that at in the Bible?
Numbers 23:19 and 1 Samuel 15:29. I'll pull it up. Says, God is not a human being that he should lie, or a mortal that he should change his mind. He has promised, and will he not do it? He has spoken, and will he not fulfill it? And then 1 Samuel.
And is that Bible verse right there? Is that specifically talking about a certain event, or do you think that's just talking about God's nature in general?
It's clearly about God's nature, right? It's saying God's not a human being that he would tell a lie, right? God can't tell lies because he's not a human being.
I mean, I understand if you take it, if you just read that verse right there by himself, then yes, that's how it's read. But is this saying, is this like, this is Numbers 19. So this is obviously, or this is Numbers 23, verse 19. So this is obviously in the middle of a greater point, because I imagine as you learned when you study at Old Testament, it's a very poetic writing where it has a start, it meets in the middle, and then it comes back kind of to the start at the end. So what is like you're standing with this Bible verse saying that this just means that no matter what, in every aspect of life and every aspect of reality, God cannot change his mind. But is this not for a specific person? Is this not for a actual thing that's a standalone that God does not
It's a really obvious
matter, or this
statement about God's
thing?
nature.
So you just throw everything I say right out the window?
Yeah,
Like,
because none of it actually
agree.
addresses the
Yes, if
passage,
you,
right? Nothing you said
I,
addresses the fact that the author of this text is making a definitive statement about God's nature.
that, it's kind of hard to argue without a Bible in front of me, because like I want to ask you to do things, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it gets to a point where it's just back and forth and back and forth, and nothing
Yeah.
really gets done.
He says it again in 1 Samuel 15. He says, the glory of Israel will not deceive or change his mind, for he is not a mortal that he should change his mind. He's saying, listen, the God of Israel is not a mortal. He doesn't do what mortals do. He doesn't change his mind. He doesn't tell lies.
But again, I don't see the hard evidence where this specifically is talking about in general, or if he's talking about a specific event. So if I
Buddy,
said this,
all-knowing beings can't change
if
their
I said
mind.
Justin,
Jordan,
if I
all-knowing,
said,
Jordan,
if
all,
hang on,
Jordan, you're missing the plot.
can I,
All-knowing
can I
beings,
ask you a question?
all-knowing beings cannot change their mind.
How come?
It's definitionally true.
How come? If he's all powerful, he can't change his mind. If he's all
No.
powerful and all knowing, he can change it.
Nope.
Just because it doesn't make
You're,
it
you're on
finite.
you're on
Why?
you're on the wrong definitional argument right now. So if you already know what you're going to do, you know you're going to do it, right? Because God's all knowing. He knows what he's going to do. God's not confused about what he's going to do. If God knows he's going to do something, then he can't then unknow it and know something else.
Can he not know the probability of all his choices as well?
Probabilities doesn't matter. If he's all knowing and he knows what he's going to do already, then he can't change his mind about what he's going to do because he knows he's going to do it.
I mean, that stands like it sounds to me that argument stands on, like, you know, could God make a stone that he couldn't move?
No, it's
Like,
just,
it sounds like
buddy,
it sits on that logic.
it's just definitionally true. If you know you're going to do it and you can't be wrong about what you know, then you can't change your mind and do something else. This is not a tough one.
So you're saying, so put that down in like one easy premise for me, if you don't mind. That
I don't know if I can make it any easier. If you already know what you're going to do, And you can't be wrong about what you know, right? God can't be wrong about what he knows, okay? So if God already knows what he's going to do and he can't be wrong about what he knows, that means he can't then change his mind.
But if he's all powerful, could he not?
No. This is we're not in the omni paradox right
Come, he's
now.
all powerful.
Just pay attention. We're not in the.
I don't want to get into the
we're not in the omni paradox right now, Jordan. Focus on the actual argument at hand before we move forward. If you already know what you're going to do and you cannot be wrong about what you know, then definitionally speaking, you can't change your mind and do something else, correct?
I don't know. I don't know if that is correct.
that is it's just definitionally correct. It's logically and definitionally correct.
I mean, you just
You're breaking up, Jordan. No one can hear you. Jordan, you're breaking up. No one can hear you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right. Listen, you're breaking up, but it sounds like you're getting ready to take off, and that's fine. Jordan, appreciate you spending so much time with us. Come back when you get reception again, okay? Emsy came in hot, left kind of cold.